Welcome to FAQ number 10. Today is going to be a little bit different. We have a few minutes extra and we're going to run over to the farm, show you what it looks like, and then we're going to jump into about 6-7 questions, see how far I get. Let's go check the farm out right now. Now that we harvested the 10x10, I had some time to walk over here today, and I wanted to at least give you a glimpse of what our greenhouse looks like. The vegetables that were in the 10x10 were not the best example of what we can do. My wife does an incredible job over here, very detail oriented, everything to perfection. And so I just wanted to give you a walkthrough and show you the way the tomatoes should be strung up. The system that is typically used instead of the one in the 10x10 is the same that we use for the pickling cucumbers and the slicing cucumbers. You can see all of the flowers on here, and they're actually being pollinated by bumblebees. And so the bumblebees have a hive in the greenhouse, and while we're walking through here, you might actually see a couple bees flying around doing their job. So let me show you, they've already did a big harvest and they're gonna come through and do it again. The cucumbers go really fast when it's time. They're beautiful and they just keep popping. And so the down low is the first harvest, and then we'll just keep moving up. And you notice that they are up on these rollers. They just dropped them. See how they're going at an angle? And so as they get too tall, they drop them, they move the roller down, and these will all go down. At the end, we have a pipe, they'll wrap around and they'll come back down. So these can be significantly bigger than the height by using the length of the greenhouse as well. For those of you that are curious about the greenhouse process, we follow the BuildASoil way here too. My wife has been a big part of coming up with these ideas. Even the craft blend she uses in here. We use Rootwise in here. We use the Aero mixer and some of the hose rail system to actually hand water. We've got drip systems. So although it's a little more scaled up and it's a little bit more complicated as far as application, we use the exact same thing that we do in the 10x10. This was native soil we did some soil testing on, and then we've been slowly adding to it over the years. Essentially, soil testing, good amendments, and a ton of work over here is really what built this place. And all of this is attention to detail with how the clips are placed, how the string is. The first time I saw plants trellis like this was in a hydroponic system. And I thought they only got that tall because they were injecting them with nutrients and growing hydroponically. And when I learned that you could just have regular soil, craft blend, worms, the same process, and that they would grow to the ceiling and back again, I was blown away. And it's just a constant reaffirmation for me that living soil really can do everything that we want it to do. It's just that sometimes we're shown those shiny objects in the hydroponic catalogs, or we're shown that it's faster, but the growth and the speed on these and the amount that we can produce, I can't imagine wanting it any faster or needing it to be any faster. And the health of the plants and the pests, because there are the bumblebees in here, there's beneficial insects, there's predator wasps, there's worms in the soil. All of it has been done following those methodology. And so that's the type of plant health that you see here. Of course, my wife and all of the people that work here do all the work. And so that's the biggest part. It doesn't happen on its own. This is that pipe I talked about. So when these hit here, you can see they've been dropped. They'll wrap around here and the plants will start to come down this side. But this is my wife, Gwen, and she's the one that runs the whole greenhouse. So I just wanted to say hi on camera. She's super busy over here, so we're not able to document everything like we want to, but we may get there. And we promise to at least spend a little bit more time over here as the greenhouse starts to get fully connected for the season and we get more in a harvest routine instead of getting everything ready, which is a ton of work out here. So thanks for following along. Let's jump into the FAQ. And a kiss. All right, thanks for checking out the farm. It's really popping off over there. It's one of the hottest days of the year, and it was still looking good in the middle of the day through all of that. And that's just a testament to the temperature of the living soil and the control in the greenhouse. So let's jump into some of these questions now. Just get right to it. First question is from Sticky Hands, and it says, I've been following since episode 1. I was so excited to see the video. Please follow through until the end by showing some mini clips of the drying and trim out. I hope you continue with another series and tweak things as you go, commenting how you've changed and or improved the process. I love it. This is exactly what we're gonna do. I definitely can see that on our next harvest round, we're going to plan a little bit further ahead and maybe do some macro shots, potentially take like a black background and maybe pull some of the full plants or colas out, take some good living plant shots. We weren't ready for it. We needed to get harvesting, and we've got some more important things that are going on here, but with respect to documenting it, we can definitely improve there next time. We will be showing the dried flower shots. We're gonna take some great photos. We'll be doing some sort of documentation of the other processes too, making sure that we round out how to dry and hang and trim and all of that. So I look forward to those coming episodes. I think if we do it all right, we've got it planned out for 2 or 3 more to basically finish this series where we do the yield and going over some of the review. So I will be reviewing and critiquing what I would have done differently on this last round. And we've still got to make plans for the next round, which we'll be discussing a little bit as well. CH says, general indoor growing question. I have 2 earth boxes under one of the timber lights growing carrots, beets, and leeks. Soil is home mixed based on one of the type of recipes on your site. Everything has started falling over, which I can only presume is damping off from me filling the reservoirs with water long before I ever planted anything in them. Can I save this soil and these containers always? If so, how? I'm going to let these seedlings ride out and just see what happens. I added some microbe complete to see if I can make things turn around the corner. Any tips are much appreciated. Okay, first things first, let's take your earth box and let's grab it. If that little shower cap is on there, you don't have to worry about the soil spilling. You can kind of hold it on and tip it towards the reservoir side that drains the water when you overfill. And I want you to try and tip all of the water out of it and make sure it's bone dry in there. If you can't tip it all out and you're worried and you have a shop vac, I think you could probably put the shop vac into the down tube and have it suck out some of the excess water and at the same time pulling a little air through. Alternatively, you could make sure that you could even put like a fan pointed in that direction, but you're trying to get increased airflow and you need to get the reservoir empty and dry. The soil will still be wet, but now that there is air in there, the air can flow to the bottom where it's probably most anaerobic and start to heal itself. Apart from that, using the RootWise is a great recommendation. It's got a few products in there that will help with the excess water and allow the roots to potentially work through it. Another thing you can do is foliar feed at this time. So it's kind of like putting the IV in the plant. If they can't get it through their stomach, through the root system, how they're supposed to, you can give them some amino acids, many different brands of amino acids. Typically, you're gonna see either a soy amino or a fish amino. We carry both here. We have the Grower's Secret Amino, which is very cost effective. We also have the Pure Protein Dry is the fish amino. Either way, a little bit of that in water, foliar sprayed, could give them the perk up that they need, kind of like lighter fluid in the fire to get it re-going again. Beyond that, if it's really bad and it's gone so far that it's just stinky smelling in there, even when you dump the water out, there might be a slow period. So depending on how much you have invested in time in this, you could pull the crop out, put a whole bunch of cover crop or something fast growing in there and have it drink the water. And then you can start back over again without adding the water to the reservoir before you start. I've said it a few times, but the earth box is a powerhouse. The only problem is if you let it go with a compost soil recipe like ours, with a wet reservoir, it can totally be a problem. And I don't have a guaranteed bulletproof answer for you other than the problem is too much moisture. Let's get it out, let's get the airflow back. And the only way to do that is to move the water out. The easiest way is either with airflow. You can pop the cap, put a fan on it. It might take a while. So roots, if you have healthy growing plants, they're gonna drink that water really quickly. And cover crop is very resilient. It can grow through almost any of the soil problems. And then you can just chop and drop it or chop it and pull it out and put your next crop in. So hopefully those are some ideas for you. Of course, the RootWise is a help, but I feel like until you round that corner and the plants start growing healthy again, the main focus is keeping the water out of the reservoir and starting to get that dry down. It can be turned around. So hope that answers your question. Okay, next question. Daniel says, would love to see you dedicate a quadrant to growing in like 5-gallon pots. I know it's not ideal size for organics, but I think people do it anyway, and it'd be rad to be able to see how you deal with the challenges inherent in growing organically in a smaller container size. It's two-sided. One is I want to show you how to do it because it totally can be done. And it's kind of the beginnings of where most of us started. We took a current, like a Home Depot bucket setup or a 5-gallon smart pot setup and started to convert the idea of recycling the soil and putting it back in there to going to no-till. And you can certainly, with high plant counts and smaller sizes, get great yields out of 5 gallons. But we moved away from it for a reason. And so the black belt answer is don't put yourself in a position that you shouldn't be in. And that's always the way to win. So I would say, don't start with 5 gallons, go to a bigger container. And the reason why is exactly why I'm gonna struggle showing you. It can be done, and I can absolutely show you how to do it. My main caveats are a smaller plant size, the ability to liquid feed or top dress. The bigger my plant gets means the more liquid feed or top dress I have to use, which means the more I'm in control, not the soil, and there's room for air. And so when you look at 5 gallons, that means that I'm gonna have to come back here 7 days a week and potentially twice a day for watering during the peak stretch period in a 5-gallon plant if my plant size gets a little unwieldy on me. So hopefully if I was to document it and show you, I would keep the plant size accurate, but I'd still need water every single day to keep it in that optimal zone. And I'm a little bit fearful that as busy as we are, we've got almost 50 employees, we have thousands of orders going out, and we're readdressing some organizational problems we've had here to really, really get dialed in on our foundation. in the middle of all that, trying to add 5 gallons in where I have to be here 7 days a week could be enough to kind of break the system. And if I miss a day of watering, it could be a domino effect in health. And that's the same thing that the home customer has to deal with. Even though they may not be running the same business and have the same daily activities, I guarantee you we're all still pretty busy. And so putting a 5 gallon into your life and actually succeeding well can set you up for failure when you get halfway through flower and you just miss that one morning that you needed to water. And it was a little hot and the lights were banging on it and they just started to droop. And that started the domino effect of calling in either pest or disease. And so I would really encourage you not to do 5 gallons. However, if you do want to do it, keep the plant size small and make sure you got the ability for a little bit of room in your container to top dress as we go into flower. And then maybe consider using like some liquid fish, some BuildABloom, Organics Alive, having a few tools on hand that might help you actually keep your yield high in the small container. Although I've mentioned all the reasons I wouldn't do it, I'm fully aware that a lot of you want to see it. So I'm leaving it on the table for now. I've not taken it off the table. I'm not scared of extra work. I still may commit to doing a 5 gallon setup. I'm just leaning towards not doing it because it's not what I would teach you from a top level approach of how to do the BuildASoil way. So all that considered, let's throw some comments in here. If everybody really wants to see it, there's a couple of options I have. I could set up an automated watering system. I don't like blue mats very much. I would probably use like a dripper system, and I could use that just on the weekends. But I don't like having all these tubes and everything everywhere, and I don't really want to deal with it. So let's move on to the next question. I think I fully addressed it. If you've got some input there, Daniel, let me know. Anyone else, let's put that in this episode, and we'll be sure to consider that when we make our plans for season 2, round 2. All right, so Ned says, I would love to hear your thoughts on feeding the take and bake recipe for maximum results, as well as any different ways you could. Oh, this is a really good question. So first off, the take and bake kit was designed to fit into boxes and be fairly economical while giving you the gift of making your own soil from scratch. And it's strange because it seems like it'd be very, very easy for anyone to just go make their own soil, especially when you start learning how powerful this is. But if you're like me and you start to ask questions, you go, well, where do I buy the compost? Is it good compost? Where do I buy this? Is this really the right one? And then your buddy says, oh, that's the wrong kelp, you need this. And your little list becomes complicated with all these little side notes all over it. You're going to different hydro stores and gardening stores trying to ask questions. And that's part of where BuildASoil was developed from. I had a lot of trouble sourcing all these ingredients so I could just try it on my own. And so in that spirit, we wanted to make the take and bake where you literally dig your hands in there, you make your own soil from scratch. And we copied one of the original recipes where we use the Coots style nutrient kit and the BuildASoil minerals. And what that means is that it's very simple. You've got your kelp, crustacean, neem, a little malted barley, right? And then we add in the minerals, your basalt, gypsum, oyster shell. It's one of these things where you can definitely add a little more like we did into our 3.0 or our light. And so from soil testing, one of the things that we would see is a little bit low on the phosphorus. And if I was going to add something to the take and bake, which we may consider doing, it would be a phosphorus source. We've got 2 here that we prefer. Some people would use bone meal. We recommend against it because of the cattle treatment, the GMO fed. There's not an organic bone meal source for the most part. So we use fish bone meal. And the downside is that if you use excessive amounts of it, it does have other things besides phosphorus. It comes with calcium, but it also can come with a little bit of sodium. So we typically mix it between 2 ingredients, fish bone meal and soft rock phosphate, known as calphos and a few other things. That is 2 sources of calcium and phosphorus, which are very, very good for soil mixes. And I would consider either adding one or both of those to the take and bake to really increase the level of phosphorus. And so that's one answer. The next answer is, instead of just buying those individuals, you could grab some craft blend and add more diversity. The craft blend is heavily focused on the phosphorus being a little bit more than the other ingredients. And so that would steer it that direction. You could top dress with it. Alternative to that, you could purchase Organics Alive. They have a PK that has higher P and K. It's a ferment byproduct, so it fits with a living soil model, and that would boost it. That being said, it only boosts the PK, not the calcium and micronutrients. So I like to, after a top dress, use something like that. Otherwise, I add some gypsum to it. The BuildABloom is the other answer. That's got our high phosphorus amendment. It's got a little fulvic acid. It's got a little bit of extras in there that help the whole thing, like the gypsum I just mentioned. That's all in the BuildABloom. So with the take and bake, much like the rest of our soils, extra that we'd be looking to add for yield for flowering would be a little more phosphorus. And the last liquid one that we have is by Blue Gold. They have a fusion flour formula that some of our growers absolutely swear by. And all of these will work well in the take and bake because the take and bake is low sodium, high calcium. It's a very good recipe. We've learned a little bit since then. What we're gonna do on this next round is we're gonna actually soil test our finished take and bake. We're gonna be transparent with the results, and we're gonna tell you what we're gonna add to ramp it up for the next cycle. Subscribe, pay attention to the future episodes, and we're gonna actually scientifically show you what we could add to the take and bake to make it better, but that's after a round. So it's not exactly the same as what could I add day one. Once we get all this information and we double back, we're probably gonna soup up the take and bake to add maybe one ingredient or two to make it the best that it could be. So really good question, appreciate you asking it. And as always, we'll try and be as transparent as possible with all of these updates. So subscribe, follow along, and I promise you in one of these coming videos, we will address that a little more head on with the take and bake kit. Okay, next question. Eric says, how much soft rock phosphate, this is great, how much soft rock phosphate would you add into the take and bake? I'm looking to incorporate it. Great, probably, I think I may have mentioned it. What I would do is look at it as like a cups per cubic foot type thing. It's an easier way to go. You can always go by weight, but if you go by some rules of thumb, we're probably gonna print these on a card somewhere because there's so many general rules, but the minerals and the nutrients, there's some general rules of thought to them. Even though soft rock phosphate is a mineral, it's oftentimes classified as a nutrient because it's more about the phosphorus than like basalt or anything else that is a general mineral. And so with that being said, typically with any nutrients, we wanna be about a half to 1 cup of that ingredient per cubic foot of the recipe. Calphos is fairly forgiving because it's high in the things that we want, and it's not like high in sodium or high nitrogen or anything we have to be forgiving with. So I would add 1 cup per cubic foot, no problem, to the take and bake kit, and it will work really well. So the take and bake, like 9 cubic feet or so, and so that would be 10 cups of your calphos that you'd be putting in there and mixing it and incorporating it together. And I'd imagine if you were to test it, that would raise your P to K levels to be a lot more 1-to-1, maybe even raise the P above the K. That being said, you could probably double that and still be safe. I'm a big believer though in that just adding that cup to your recipe and then reading the plants, you can always add a little more via craft blend or straight soft rock phosphate top dress later down the line. Another one we really like that's a little more fast release would be the fishbone meal. So consider that as well. You can do half and half cup of each, totally up to you. So hope that answers your question. Next one, North says, I'm still here after all these episodes. Awesome, thank you. They only get better. Please make a hash making video. Oh, good question. All right, so we've been really thinking about this. I've got a few of the basics that I use at home. My area to document it's not really the best, but we've considered doing that. I was thinking about reaching out to a buddy and maybe we could document it at his place so we could actually show you like the right temperature and all the things. And the one friend that I have locally that could probably do this the best, Pedro, if you're watching, I'm gonna hit you up after this FAQ and ask you if you wanna go in on documenting. Maybe I'll bring some of the flour over from this last round. We'll run it through your process and give people like maybe just the top level rundown of the basics of what to hit for making rosin. If you don't know, Pedro's Grow Room uses BuildASoil products. He's local, teaches people how to make really good rosin and does a damn good job. So I'll reach out to him and we'll see if we can't maybe collaborate on a better instructional. Next question. One of us says, thanks for sharing your kindness, Jeremy and crew. I've been doing this since 1993, but learned a ton on this series. Oh, thank you. Well, that's an easy one to round out the FAQ. It looks like just a comment thrown on there at the end. I really appreciate it. You know, that's one of the things that you and I have in common. I'm learning every single day when I do this, and the garden really is a teacher, and it teaches me more than just about the plants. I'm sure you can relate if you've been doing it since 93. It teaches me about life. The reason why I addressed the 5-gallon question is that I have learned to keep chaos at bay by not making choices that make my life harder. And the garden teaches me that all the time. If you can't have the discipline and the intestinal fortitude to follow through with your plans, you're not gonna reap the results that you want. So I definitely appreciate you actually shouting that out and saying that you have more experience as far as time than I do, and you're still learning from us, because I plan on learning forever doing this. The garden keeps teaching, and I really appreciate you dropping that in. The rest of you guys, thanks so much for putting these questions up, allowing us to keep this going. With the feedback that we've gotten, it's been overwhelming, and we promise to do a season 2. We've still got to nail down the particulars about season 2. Subscribe, like, comment, tell your buddies. Let's make this thing huge, and round 2 is going to be even better. I want to remind you that we do have a giveaway coming up. We've alluded to it, but it is going to happen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.